Well, Rahu is liberation because before it liberates you, it kind of boxes you, it chains you down. It is all about materialism in its aspects. Your ambitions and desires could be different, but they will be bigger in magnitude. You would want to think large. A strong Rahu and a strong Venus can bring some of the biggest luxuries, some of the biggest materialistic success stories in life possible. Hi guys, welcome back to Devastrology. Today we are continuing with our series of the Mahadashas and we are doing the Rahu Mahadasha video. Now we've done the series starting from Ketu and we released the video till Mars. And in today's video, we are going to understand that how is Rahu Mahadasha going to be in your particular chart. Now to understand that, it is very important for you to understand how this Rahu is acting and behaving in your personal chart itself. Because the most complicated thing is for us to understand the behavior of this Rahu. And then based on this Rahu's attributes, we will also understand that how the subsequent Antardashas in your chart will pan out. So to understand the behavior of Rahu, you need to look at a few things. Number one, that what is the placement of Rahu from a house perspective. That is going to give a very clear indicator as to what are the different houses that are coming under the influence of Rahu. One, where this Rahu is placed, and then the three aspects 5, 7 and 9 is what I consider from Rahu's perspective. Number two, you have to understand who is the lord of the house where Rahu is placed. So say Rahu is placed in your 4th house and you are a Scorpio ascendant. Then your 4th house is being ruled by Aquarius, which is co-ownership of Rahu itself. So it is a decent placement for Rahu in terms of its sign because it's in its own sign in a way to speak. However, it might not be the most ideal situation from an axis perspective because you guys know, and I've explained it multiple times in my videos before as well, the preferred Rahu Ketu axis. Now, from a house perspective, if I were to look at, I would prefer the house placement as number 3, number 5, number 6, which is a very strong placement. And then you also, would prefer number 10 and number 11. 3, 5, 6, 10 and 11. These 5 house placements for Rahu are generally considered to be very decent placements. And from a sign perspective, as we all know that Rahu has the co-ownership of Aquarius, so of course, if it is present in the sign of Aquarius, it is in a powerful situation. Or else, Rahu also tends to do well if it is sitting in a mercurial sign, which is a Gemini placement or a Virgo placement. Rahu will also do well in its friendly sign of Venus, which is Taurus and Libra. However, in all other placements other than Aquarius, Rahu will tend to struggle a bit and will not find itself comfortable and will only be performing or giving the results based on the dignity of the dispositor where Rahu is placed. So, for example, your Rahu is sitting in the sign of Pisces. You have to see the dignity and strength of Jupiter in your chart along with the house placement of this Rahu to understand what will be the impact in your chart. So I hope we've got the first element sorted out where we understand what would be the dignity of this Rahu in your own chart itself. Now the second thing that we have to understand is that what are the major attributes of this Rahu? See, a lot of people dread both Ketu and Rahu Mahadashas. Why? Because they are a part of the same axis. It was the same demon Swarbhanu who was split into 2 by Vishnu after he had consumed nectar. And post that, the part which was above the neck, was termed as Rahu, while the lower half of the body was termed as Ketu. Now, of course, Rahu is also called as the north node, while Ketu is the south node. So this Rahu, somewhere or the other, has a connection with a very primary attribute, which is liberation. I know it is hard to understand that how can Rahu be connected with liberation, whilst this is something we've always associated with Ketu that talks about liberation, detachment, giving away of things. Well, Rahu is liberation because before it liberates you, it kind of boxes you, it chains you down. It is all about materialism in its aspects. So it will chain you down with all material aspects possible in life. You will be struggling with respect to relationships, your career, the kind of money you want, or maybe other financial situations that are bothering you all your life. And when these kind of situations become prominent, you know that Rahu has some or the other role to play. There will be some sort of an illusion, conflict in your mind, some sort of a manifestation where you are not being kind to yourself and not just to others. You might assume in this confusion that you are doing right for yourself, but you are not. So, Rahu is all about liberation because it is going to liberate only after you give up, after absolute pain, after being chained down, being in a box. It's almost like being held captive under the material aspects of Rahu. And when you no more care about those material aspects, you are liberated from that captivity. Rahu is about confusion. It is about illusion because it is going to give you this sense as if you are destined or promised to achieve something extraordinary, something that you've always wanted to chase or have been chasing. There will be a chase associated with Rahu. There will be a confusion in terms of your fears becoming prominent. Some of your phobias, your innermost desires will scare you as well. You will not have enough confidence about people or the relationships that you have around you, or with respect to the actions or karmas that you're taking in life. And that is also an indicator if whether or not your Rahu is well placed and performing well or not. The other thing that you might want to see is that Rahu is a clear indication of the ambitions or desires in your life. See, it is the ruler of the 11th house, the Aquarius sign. And what do we see from that house? It is 12th to the 12th. It is a step just before liberation, just before nirvana, just before the ultimate step that you take towards spirituality. So Rahu is actually the key to that independence. But it is going to box you with your desires. It's going to box you within your goals and ambitions so that you are always involved and lost within them. And that is why a lot of material success in terms of your career growth, your profession, the kind of money you get, or the political success you achieve in life can all be seen through Rahu itself. Rahu is a friend of Venus, and that is why it loves to play in luxury. It loves to get involved in the intricacies of your relationships. And this Rahu is going to play a very critical role throughout its Mahadasha and subsequent Antardashas as to how you evolve with those relationships, with those connections. It is your friend network as well. It is the relationship with masses overall. It is your branding, your image. And the reason I'm saying it is your branding and image is it is only Rahu and Ketu that cast an eclipse on the sun. So if you are going to get impacted with respect to your reputation, it is going to be dependent as to how Rahu is acting and behaving in your chart. This Rahu will also make you take very unconventional steps. It is going to bring in interest towards something foreign, not just foreign connections. Of course, that is a given with Rahu because Rahu is going to, it is moving towards the 12th, or rather it has come from the 12th. It is a foreign connection. It has come from the 12th to the 11th. So having a foreign inclination is a very natural thing for Rahu. During its periods, it will have the tendencies to uproot you from your homeland, from your birthplace, or from wherever you were comfortable with, and take you somewhere else in an unknown zone, in an unknown area, and expose you to the challenges that you were not anticipating. It will take you in the spiritual realm as well, through the unknown territories, through the unconventional routes. Osho, for that matter, is a good example. This Rahu could actually bring in spirituality in your life, but it would not be through the traditional means that are being followed by your community, your family, because you are going to pick something non traditional with this Rahu. This Rahu will give you opportunities to partner with people who are from foreign lands, people from different countries, from different religions, from different customs. And it could either work in your favor or it could bring lots of more challenges during the Dasha Antardasha periods. This Rahu could also be the karaka of health challenges or problems coming your way. And we will look into, you know, through the video to understand how these challenges can come your way, how these problems can come your way, and how you can potentially overcome health related problems, any karmic lessons that could be coming your way, and how you need to overcome those problems as well. But I hope if you get an understanding of this illusionary, delusionary behavior of Rahu, this cast of fear, this cast of ambition, the unknown, the unseen, if you are able to figure that out as to how all these attributes are playing within your own life, if you understand that whether you easily get cheated or you have a tendency to cheat others to extract your own benefit, you will understand whether or not the dignity of your Rahu is good or bad. Not only the three indicators in its house placement, sign placement, as well as the ownership of 11th, but these attributes throughout your life will give you enough indication as to whether or not this Rahu has been treating you in the right way or not. So without further ado, we will try and jump and see into each of the Antardashas to figure out what exactly is happening with this Rahu Mahadasha. Now, the first period is that of Rahu Mahadasha, Rahu Antardasha. It's a period of 2 years and 8 months. So, guys, the first and foremost thing that I've noticed, and I've seen this in enough of the chart readings that I've done in the last 2-3 years, that some way or the other, there is some sort of disruption that comes in the lives of the people during this phase itself. Now, this disruption could be positive or negative, is what you have to understand based on the factors that I stated before in the video. But you will see that people will undergo significant changes. There could be a shift in residence, first and foremost. Change of place. You will pack up your bags and move to an entirely different location. Now, whether or not that is to your liking is dependent on the strength of this Rahu. A well-placed Rahu is going to give you an incremental opportunity, an opportunity of growth, an opportunity that brings in expansion. So this change of residence could be you acquiring a new property and moving to your own home from a rented place. Or you could be upgrading yourself from a small condo to a large apartment complex. And this way you will understand that this Rahu seems to be positively impacting you. The other noticeable change could be that this change in residence would have come non-forced to you in a positive case. It could have resulted into a career growth. It could have resulted into you taking larger responsibility or taking up a new engagement, a new project by yourself if you are self-employed or within your business to expand in a new geography. And they have all these positive connotations associated with it, but there will be a definite upheaval from your place of living, from wherever you've been residing and working thus far. Remember, it was the Mars Moon Dasha that was getting over for you. So you're starting with Rahu, and there is going to be a mental and emotional change as well. Because in the Mars moon, as we've discussed, and if you've not watched it, I would urge you to go back and check as well. You will see that how your emotional transformation was happening and how your mental emotions or mental thought process was changing. There was a fast paced action towards it. But this fast paced action, if it is going to be constructive for you in this Dasha Sandhi period, will be visible during these 2 years and 8 months. Because you will understand that there was a level of hastiness in you, and whether or not the confusion that you have today, the illusion that you have today is taking you in the right direction or not. So, Rahu Mahadasha, Rahu Antardasha is a period that for most people have observed that there is a change in life that is coming into play. The way we talked in the Ketu Mahadasha, there was a departure. Here there is an upheaval in your own life. It's very evident from a physical self perspective. The second thing that you would notice is that apart from the change in residence, there could be a career move, or there could be a shift in the trajectory of your career during the first phase of this Antardasha itself. And the reason I say this is that somewhere or the other, Rahu wants to deliver a material, physical impact to your life, unlike the emotional, mental impact that was coming in the Ketu Mahadasha period. Again, if you've not watched that, go back and check and figure out if you are able to connect the dots in your life and if you've lived through both the dashas. Or maybe speak to somebody elderly in your family and understand how did they experience those phases. It'll help you connect the dots. But it is going to be a period of illusion. It is going to be a period of confusion. No matter if you have a greatly placed Rahu in your chart. Rahu is a trader. It has a tendency to extract if it gives. And if it extracts before, it is going to definitely reward you as well. So more often than not, people who have a well-placed Rahu will start with a positive tick in this Antardasha. But some sort of health challenges, some sort of issues, say with your partner, miscarriages, those kind of losses will also come within this Antardasha itself. You might have acquired a new property, and I know somebody did that. And unfortunately had a miscarriage within a few months. It is the impact of Rahu. It gives from one hand and it takes from the other. But if it is ill placed in your chart, having a positive outcome within this Antardasha is highly improbable because it is going to be a difficult Antardasha for you to begin with. Then you would also be thinking or at least dreaming about big expansions in life. And what do I mean by big expansions? Whether or not you are able to implement that, because these shifts are coming in your life, these changes are coming in your life, you might want to aspire for a bigger car, for a bigger property, for a bigger job, for a fancier title, for a bigger city to move into. Your ambitions and desires could be different, but they will be bigger in magnitude. You would want to think large. And this will continue in the second phase of Rahu Mahadasha and Jupiter Antardasha. This period is going to be 2 years and 5 months for you. See, another expansionist planet is walking into the Mahadasha of a planet which is talking about expansions and illusions. It's a magician and a spiritual planet walks in. Rahu and Jupiter form Guru Chandal Yoga if they are in a conjunction in your chart. But from a Dasha period perspective, from a Mahadasha and Antardasha perspective, what happens is that Jupiter would want to bring in a certain level of sanity, spirituality, beneficness in its growth that it wants to impart to you. Yes, Jupiter wants to bring in expansion during its Antardasha. But how well your Jupiter is placed and what is the relationship of this Jupiter with Rahu is going to be very, very critical. If you have a strong, well-placed, exalted Jupiter, Jupiter in its own sign or friendly sign in a good directional strength as well, more often than not, no matter how difficult your first Antardasha of Rahu was, you will recuperate during this period. And to a few, you are going to expand and grow bigger in this period if you had a great first Antardasha as well. Because this Jupiter is now going to give you certain direction. The directionlessness that you had in life will actually be curbed now. There's a very strong probability, and people who are watching this Rahu Mahadasha video and have spent this Antardasha might be able to resonate with this point. There is a very high chance that you might come in contact with a spiritual guru, a teacher, a mentor, a boss from a different community, from a different culture, from a different religion, from a different geography. And they will be very significantly impacting the different aspects of your life. If they are bosses, they are going to impact your career. If they are your teachers or mentors, they are going to set the right principles for you through the course of this period. But one thing is for sure, that this Jupiter, even if an ill-placed Jupiter in your chart, even a debilitated Jupiter in your chart, will try its level best to bring in some sort of sanity in your thought process, some sort of construct in your thought process, because no matter what, in the last 2 years, 8 months, you had been running like a headless chicken in all directions. Yes, some of you might have found success, but it is never long lasting with Rahu's benefits. So it becomes absolutely important for you to figure out as to how you can expand on your knowledge, how you can gain more on your own self-learning during the Antardasha of Jupiter. Because if you pursue and do that, in a way, you are actually doing a practical remedy that I keep talking about in my one-to-one consultations as well. I don't tell people about buying 5 kgs rice and throwing it somewhere in a field or in a river. No, because I believe in practical changes, and one of the biggest practical change that you can inculcate in your life is when you start acquiring knowledge, and this is the best period for you to bring in that understanding, that clarity. Probably fight yourself out of all the confusion, of all the fears that you've had in life. You might be able to expose yourself to new beings, to new things, to new learnings that can help calm your fears, that can help address the growth, the ambitions that you have in your desires. But if you are not able to do that, it is going to set course for a very difficult Antardasha that follows later. So the Jupiter Antardasha is the one that has the potential to give a lot of clarity. This is also the Antardasha that brings in a lot of stupendous career growth for many people in their lives. A lot of transformative business practical challenges are being taken by people during this period itself. By the way, Jupiter Antardasha is also a good period for many of you to get married, because 18 years is a long period of Antardasha and Mahadasha of Rahu, and you get couple of windows within this Mahadasha itself that could be well suited for your marriage prospects. And Jupiter Antardasha promises one to be. So this is a period where you might start new business engagements, you might start new relationships, you might fructify into a marital bliss, a marital engagement. Post this period of Jupiter Antardasha comes your Saturn Antardasha. And as I've been saying through the course of this Mahadasha series, the saddest is back. See, every time Saturn follows Jupiter and it is expecting to see what learnings have you inculcated in life? What changes have you brought in yourself? Have you learned anything from the tough periods or not? So the Saturn Antardasha is the period of discipline. It's a period of hard work. It is a period where you will understand that whatever learnings, whatever new skills that you had learned in the previous Antardasha, how can you bring them to implementation during this phase? It is going to test you Because Saturn and Rahu, they do not enjoy a very friendly relationship with each other. Yes, both of them happen to be the owners of the Aquarius sign number 11, but it doesn't have a direct friendly connection with Rahu. And that is where Saturn struggles. It struggles because it is not in alignment to the attributes of Rahu. Cheating, bringing in trickery to the relationships, not being just, having that illusion. Because when you are having an illusion, you are away from the hard work, and Saturn tends to dislike these qualities. So, the Antardasha of Saturn is a period which expects you to work hard. It could also be a period of tremendous amount of stress in different walks of your life, especially your career. Many of you who would be going through the Rahu Saturn Antardasha would be facing some of the toughest challenges in your career at this point in time, especially if this Saturn is ill placed or maybe in conjunction with Rahu. If it is in conjunction with Rahu or it is seventh to Rahu as well, bang opposite to it, that is another situation because it will be in conjunction with Ketu, and that forms the Shapati Yoga. So these combinations are not at all the greatest combinations when it comes for Saturn to operate in its Antardasha. And you will find the biggest turbulences of your career will come in the Antardasha of Saturn itself in Rahu Mahadasha. And there is no simple remedy to come out of this problem. Because Saturn is coming here to teach you a lesson to slog harder during these tough periods. It is going to expect you to bring in discipline. Rahu is going to crank you open to sleep as late as possible. It is going to, manifest all these habits where you drink, party, enjoy with your friends, and have late nights and wake up as late as possible. Well, Saturn wants discipline. I'm sorry for the people who are not the followers of routine, and I was one. So I speak with due responsibility. But this Saturn expects you to be disciplined. It expects you to follow a military timetable in your life for the course of these 2 years, 10 months. And sorry, I keep referring to my notes because I had to pen down the durations of these Antardashas as well. I don't recollect and remember all of that. So yes, in this period, what you will expect is that there could be certain challenges outside your career to your health matters as well. Now, when I said stress, it was mentally. From a health perspective, you could find issues coming to your limbs, your fingers, especially your lower half of the body, your legs, feet. And you got to be very, very careful in terms of road accidents or, while driving your car or motorcycle or whatever that is, bikes. Because these are the periods where an ill-placed Saturn under Rahu's affliction could bring a lot of damage. This is also a period where you could see the departure of somebody in your family. Sorry, I've got to talk about this bit as well. But during Saturn Antardashas, especially if it is your Marka, and I've done a detailed video on Karka, Badaka, and Marka planets, which you can check out in the playlist itself, you will realize if Saturn is a Marka in this case, it could be a very troubling period for the native. So you have to make sure that again, a remedy that I'll refer here is that you have to make sure that on Saturdays, you are offering prayers to both Saturn and Rahu. And there are Beej mantras of Rahu that you can chant along with the mantras of Shani that should be helpful. But the best approach, a practical remedy towards overcoming this period would be to actually maintain a 24-hour timetable to your life. And you will see how extraordinary the outcomes would be for you. It might not be a breeze, but you will have the structure to face the challenges that you're going through. Post the Saturn Antardasha comes the Mercury Antardasha, and this is a period of 2 years and 6 months. Now, this Antardasha of Mercury can be very dicey. It could be great for some of us and it could be terrible for the others. You need to first of all understand that Mercury's trait is that of a businessman. It was a cheater as well. He's a prince, strong with communication. And if all the negative attributes of Mercury get aligned with them, with that of Rahu, then what you will realize is that the tendency to become street smart, clever in terms of your communication, strong in your negotiation, pulling people around, you know, the tendency to cheat them for your own gains could increase during this period. And yes, you might find success doing that as well. But that is not the ideal way to approach, because remember, and I keep repeating this, Rahu gives with one hand and it takes from the other. So the Mercury Antardasha is a period where many of you would notice that there will be a substantial uptick in your profession, in your career. Especially many of you would take this interest of launching something of your own, getting started with your own business or your own startup. There could be a potential change in your career options. You will become a strong communicator. You will thrive on relationships. You will build multiple relationships. And when I say relationships, it's not just the romantic relationships that I'm alluding to. Yes, in a negative situation, you could actually harm your marital relationship or your romantic relationship as well. But beyond that, you will be democratizing your thoughts, your ideas, your expressions to the larger world, to the larger network. And you will be very transactional about it. You will be, you will negotiate for your own gains during this period. Mind you, this is a period that brings a lot of thinking ability. Decision making can be very sharp and very accurate and very prompt. At the same time, a negative Mercury can be very, very vicious. Vicious because it can take you into the negative aspects of the qualities of both these planets. Yes, you might try to do well in business, but you might use unjust means. You might try and strike a deal which is just to your benefit and not to the other party. You might end up hurting your romantic partners, your marital partners. You could end up propagating lies, blasphemy, which could be preposterous, but you would do that. If this Mercury is an affliction, say it is in the 7th house or in the 7th sign, in its sign of debilitation. And there are multiple such problems that you can create for yourself for the next dasha to come in. Because in a negative situation, the next dasha that follows is that of Ketu. And that Ketu Antardasha is exactly 1 year, 1 month. And in my opinion, this is one of the most transformative dashas, Antardashas within the Rahu Mahadasha. And the reason I say this is the most transformative one is because it's the two parts of Swarbhanu, the headless character of Ketu, which is all about liberation and detachment, and the fear-oriented magician, illusionist Rahu, which is trying to cast all kind of tricks all over you. So this is a period where you will be filled up with confusion. You will have no clarity of what is right or wrong. This will be a period where your decisions could be absolutely spotty. You could be on a rocky boat with respect to your relationships. If you've had a gala period in your relationships with the Mercury Antardasha, during the Ketu Antardasha, you will figure out that there could be departure, ending of some of those relationships. And when I say departure, departure in any form, physical or in the material front, which means that you could actually lose someone forever, or there could be end of relationships. There will be an increased amount of confusion from your own identity perspective. Now, many of you would realize that this is a period where you are not able to differentiate between what is right and wrong. And remember, guys, Ketu is like the follower of Jupiter. At the end of the day, these both planets want to lead us towards spirituality. So it is highly important in terms of understanding what could be the remedies as well. It is highly important for you to find the right mentor, the right guru, or find some solitude in religion, in spirituality in general. Sorry, not religion. You have to understand that you will need some additional strength to overcome the problems that will come your way, and you might not have enough ammunition to fight the obstacles that are being thrown at you. This is a period where you have to remain absolutely composed if possible and chant Om Namah Shivaya as much as you can. Sorry for my bias towards Shivji, but I believe that this is one way to encounter. And yes, for Ketu, they do say that Ganesh Puja is also very, very relevant. But this is going to be one of the most challenging period during this entire Antardasha. You will have to lean in towards spirituality. You will have to go in towards introspection and see whatever has happened in the previous dashas in the last 8-10 years. Are your actions culminating into what you are facing right now? Or is it the past life karma, the past life debt that you are paying? Because Ketu is the carrier of the past life debt. And it is in its Antardasha, it is going to bring them to the fore. Depending on the placement of Rahu and Ketu in the axis, you also need to understand that what would be the avenues where it could get impacted. Say if Rahu's in 4th and Ketu's in 10th, you should be prepared to some challenges coming from your career perspective. In 9th, it could be with respect to your bosses, your father, or spirituality in general. There could be a loss of identity, as I said, that might come into play. And that is why it is going to be one of the toughest period for you guys to tackle. Followed by which comes the 3-year-long period of Venus Antardasha in Rahu Mahadasha. Now, this is a period of some sort of respite. And I say respite in this material world because the carrier of materialism, Venus, and the friend of Rahu is now coming into play with the longest Antardasha under its belt. So this is a period where, you will be obsessed about luxuries, about relationships, about money, about your own gains, about different kinds of food that you consume, your bank balances and how grand that is, and how many romantic pursuits that you can potentially have. You will be obsessed about your own appearance, your hairstyle, your looks. So yes, Venus Antardasha is one of those Antardashas where Rahu tends to support its friend Venus just like the way it was supporting Mercury as well. However, the dignity of Venus and where is it placed? Is it coming under a direct aspect of Rahu, 5 or 9? Or if it is in conjunction with Rahu? Well, in those kind of situations, I see that a lot of times the native tends to lose path in terms of their character during the Venus Antardasha. It's a period where people tend to forge multiple relationships. And it could not be just romantic relationships that we're talking about, but relationships in terms of exposing themselves to as many encounters as possible of different kinds. This is a period that brings in obsession, and I've talked about the same thing in Venus Mahadasha video as well. Please go and check that out. In Venus Mahadasha and Rahu Antardasha, I have detailed this thing out, that there is a sense of obsession that comes into play. And this obsession is all about yourself. You are going to be thinking about your own gains, your own profit. How are you benefiting during this period? Because somewhere or the other, it is like, a human being after facing all the challenges from the Saturn and the Ketu Antardasha feels as if you want to take it back from the world. You want to get it back for yourself. You want to bounce back against all odds. But it is a very tricky situation because if you go downhill a path where you are choosing to hurt others, where you are choosing to pick your priority at the cost of others, at the mercy of others, that is when you are going to further deplete the karmic assets that you have with you into the future antardashas that are bound to come and could be troubling as well. So you have to maintain that poise in your life. But a strong Rahu and a strong Venus can bring some of the biggest luxuries, some of the biggest materialistic success stories in life possible. A strong Venus placement and a strong Rahu placement in your chart could be a period where you could rise to the next level when it comes to your career, in terms of job switch, in terms of getting a new job opportunity that takes you to a diagonal gain path, a diagonal trajectory. It could result into you bringing in prosperity through your own house, through your own assets. You can expand in terms of the property that you get. New cars, increase in bank balances. This is yet another period where people can actually look forward to get married, just as we were talking in the Jupiter Antardasha under Rahu Mahadasha. This is another period of 3 years where you have a decent window of getting married as well. And I think I had recommended not to replicate the same in Venus Mahadasha and Rahu Antardasha. If not, please keep that in your mind. Followed by this Antardasha comes the period of Sun. And that period is for about 11 months, just under a year. Now, Sun denotes your soul. It denotes your father. It denotes your respect in the society. It denotes the government. And more often than not, Rahu Mahadasha and Sun Antardasha, or Rahu Mahadasha and Moon Antardasha, typically do not tend to do well. First and foremost, in the Sun Antardasha, there could be a significant risk in terms of property, health, assets to your father. There could be a loss of your own reputation. There could be a challenge that might crop up with respect to your reputation, your dignity in the society. Any of your past actions in the Mercury and Venus Antardasha will come out in light to the market, to the world, which could negatively reflect about your situation. It is a period where you could be reprimanded by the government itself. You could face multiple allegations, certain kind of lawsuits that might come into your way. Because remember, Rahu and Sun relationship is not an easy one. I can still bear with Sun and Ketu, because it forms that Dvaj Kirti Yoga, and it does have the ability. Ketu has that positive element of taking you to the right path. But Rahu wants to shackle you with its materialistic thought process. And if the soul gets shackled within that, that is an absolute loss, or it is an absolute misalignment of priorities between the two. So in the Sun Antardasha, one remedy is, practice good habits. Donate. Act like a king. Do not act like the mad king from the Game of Thrones. I think that is a good way to put it. Act like a king. Help others. Try and help others. That is the best way to have a decent 11-month period of this Antardasha. Do selfless acts. Go out and support people. Go out and address challenges of the people. Take up volunteering opportunities, responsibilities within your community, within the government circles, where you can just support. And that is going to do a lot of good in your life if you bring this to practice. Again, from a religious, spiritual perspective, you could offer Ark to Surya, another good habit to do so. Feeding ants is another good activity. But what you should refrain from is lying. Getting cheated during this period is of high probability for the native. You might think that you are the one who's street smart and you are going to outsmart the other person, but that is not going to be the case, irrespective of how strong your Rahu is. Because if you have a strong Rahu, ideally you wouldn't pursue anything of that sort. But if it's not the case, this is a time when you could get cheated by the others. And if not, then the Antardasha of moon, which just follows right after this, a duration of 1 year and 6 months, approximately 18-month period, is going to be the period where you will encounter this problem. Moon Antardasha is a period which will bring in a lot of fears, phobia, sense of scarcity. It is right. The expansion of anything can be seen as abundance, and the lack of anything when expanded is the presence of scarcity. And that's what you could find during this period. There could be a expansion in that mindset, scarcity mindset coming into your life. You might have a lot of fears. You might be scared in terms of your decision making. There could be health, mental, physical challenges that might come your mother's way. Emotionally, you could be distraught. And very importantly, you might find yourself surrounded by all sorts of relationships that could be cheating you during this period. Your friends could be making use of you, exploiting you to spend money or your time, effort, and energy for something which is fruitless for yourself. You could have relationships that might not be genuinely true, and those kind of people might just walk away from your life and leave you stranded. Or you might find yourself absolutely broken down, and especially this becomes heightened if you have a debilitated moon, or if your moon is in conjunction with Rahu, or in direct aspect if it is in conjunction with Ketu. It's going to be a very, very tough situation. Even a moon sitting in 8th or 12th could be a very, very tricky situation, and if it is being aspected by Rahu. It is going to be a tough period in all of these scenarios, and you should figure out as to how you can spend some time in isolation, in meditation, in collecting your thoughts to calm yourself, to come out of this, vicious cycle. Last but not the least comes the period of Mars. And this is a period of about an year. Yes, Mars brings in aggression, it brings in energy. But remember, Mars conjunction with Rahu forms what we call as the Angarka Yoga. And this is a period where you could burst in energy. And that burst in energy could be because the pace you want to bring in terms of decision making post the Moon Antardasha period. You could be filled with agitation and anger. Or you could be filled with a lot of excitement if you have a decent Rahu placed in connection with Mars. This could again be a period of revival for you if your Mars takes you in the right direction, making you much more action-oriented. However, more often than not, what I've noticed is because Mars and Rahu do not enjoy a very friendly relationship, it is one of the most tricky periods, especially from your health perspective. The respite or the exception that will come into play is if you have your Rahu sitting in the sign of Mars or is being aspected by Mars, not a mutual aspect, but being aspected by Mars. And that is going to happen when Mars is going to throw a 4th aspect or a 8th aspect to Rahu. If it is sitting bang opposite, then that case is lost. However, in those situations, and especially if Rahu is sitting in the sign of Aries or in the sign of Scorpio and is being controlled by this Mars or even a Jupiter, what you will realize is that this Antardasha of Mars could be a very fruitful, gain-oriented one. Now, to sum up my thoughts, guys, you have to remember, any time any of these planets within their Antardashas, if they are present bang opposite to Rahu in the 7th house, or if they are placed in 2nd to Rahu, they could bring in certain health-related challenges because those become the Marga positions. But in the 2nd position or in the 7th position, as I've iterated in my Karka, Badka and Maraka video as well, that you have to understand that positive things in terms of auspicious activities like a marriage to career gain, wealth gain, etc., can also happen. You have to also understand that any placement with respect to Rahu's fifth or seventh can have a deeper impact if it gets in trine to Rahu. A planet sitting in conjunction with Rahu will have some or the other traits, but you have to also check on the dispositor of that house to understand how this Rahu is going to pan out. From a remedies perspective, the best practical remedy I would want you guys to follow is do not have illusions. And that is only possible if you do not intend to cheat others. If you live in a clutter-free environment, one of the shots that I had released is what I talked about in that video as well. That try and live in a clutter-free environment, in a clean desk, in a clean home. Have a minimalistic lifestyle during this Rahu period where it is going to add to itself. 2, try and practice some meditation. If not, connect with Shiva. He is the ultimate representation of meditation in life. If you connect with him, you are bringing that energies within you. 3, you can chant Rahu mantras as well on Saturdays, Saturday evenings, and that is going to be beneficiary. And I hope if this all makes sense, then please smash on that like button and subscribe to Devastrology. Thank you for watching, guys.